They thought the microphones were off. They thought no one would ever hear it. But now the secret is out and it's detonating like a bomb inside the walls of the monarchy. Because what Prince Harry has just accused Meghan Markle and Prince Andrew of doing, it's not just betrayal, it's the most unthinkable conspiracy in royal history. This isn't just a scandal, it's an alleged royal coup, whispered behind velvet curtains and plotted in gilded corridors. And the court leak? It's real! Verified! Disastrous! The audio that surfaced just days ago, buried deep in court filings, sealed under royal protection protocols, wasn't supposed to exist, but somehow it's here, and it's ugly. At the center of it all, a recorded conversation from a private Montecito legal strategy meeting, reportedly captured by a high-security paralegal now under investigation for breaching the Royal Information Protection Charter. The voice unmistakably belonging to Harry can be heard saying, "That's not a divorce. That's warfare on royal soil." And insiders are calling it the Montecito maneuver. Let's rewind. Because this twist wasn't just some out-of-nowhere suspicion. It started with a custody war, a royal earthquake that already had the monarchy gasping. Harry went from emotional silence to legal fury overnight. His emergency filing in the Santa Barbara court on February 9th, 2026 wasn't just a bid for custody, it was a declaration of war on a system he claimed had turned his children into leverage. But even more shocking than the custody demand, the evidence packet attached. Inside it, not just customs records, school withdrawals, media contracts, but also private emails and confidential voice memos. And one of those files, labeled Exhibit G12, contained a conversation allegedly between Meghan and Prince Andrew, planning what Harry later described in court as a brand-backed custodial shift under image equity management. Translation, a corporate-style takeover of the children's royal identity. It was then that Harry's legal team, led by the feared Miles Armitage, slammed the panic button. Because this wasn't just a messy celebrity divorce anymore. It was starting to look like a joint power move, and not just to retain influence, but to build a rival legacy, using the names of Archie and Lilibet. And then came the leak. According to sources within the California court's digital vault system, the leaked recording was discovered in a corrupted drive folder, mislabeled under a generic appendix addendum. The audio is muffled, distorted, but when enhanced, Harry's voice cuts through with terrifying clarity. 4 meetings. 4. Between Meghan and Andrew, locations spanning the globe. And no one told Harry? At this point, the royal household was staggered. The leak was supposed to be sealed. Legal teams from both sides rushed to plug the breach. But it was too late. Insiders say a confidential advisor from Windsor's legal chamber reviewed the audio and immediately raised alarms to Princess Anne, who had already been deeply suspicious of Meghan's solo dealings overseas. And that's when the real drama began. Because if what Harry claimed is even partially true, then Meghan and Andrew didn't just violate royal ethics, they attempted a royal proxy rebrand, using underage heirs, digital assets, and cross-continental contracts. Sources say Prince Edward, who oversaw the quiet relocation of the children earlier that week, was the one who briefed Queen Camilla directly. According to an unnamed aide, Camilla's reaction was, "But wait, why Andrew? Why would Prince Andrew, already disgraced and stripped of most of his royal duties, be involved in something like this?" Well, according to Exhibit H from Harry's filing, there is an entire string of email communications recovered from a private server in Brentwood, allegedly linking Meghan's wellness brand to Andrew's offshore trust management firm in the Cayman Islands. The emails discuss brand equity monetization of royal minors, global legacy repositioning, and a now terminated PR initiative called, get this, Dynasty Reimagined. That line alone sent shockwaves through the legal world. But what's even more haunting is the timing of the leak. Because just hours after the court audio surfaced, Prince William activated the Sovereign Child Protection Mandate of 2026, which immediately placed both children under Crown guardianship, supervised jointly by himself, Princess Catherine, and Princess Anne. And it gets wilder. Sources close to the royal council confirmed that Harry's brief also included an internal draft document from Meghan's legal advisor outlining a contingency plan labeled Project Sovereign Split, a custodial and media separation strategy involving the creation of a parallel philanthropic royal house based in the WUA with Andrew as its financial advisor. So let's get this straight. Meghan Markle reportedly planning a business-backed new age royal rebrand in the Middle East, Andrew whispering financial support from behind the curtain, and Harry slowly watching from the outside until he cracked and dropped the bomb. This isn't just gossip. This is Game of Thrones Royal Divorce Edition. And what happened next might be the most dramatic plot twist yet. You read that right. The monarchy didn't wait. It moved, and the court moved with it. By the end of the week, Meghan's visitation rights were temporarily suspended, her Vogue cover shoot canceled, and her Fashion Week invitations blacklisted across Paris, Milan, and New York. Her brand deals froze, her team went silent, the damage was already done. Meanwhile, Andrew, eerily silent since the entire saga erupted, was reportedly spotted at a private security compound near Geneva, allegedly holding discussions with a legal crisis team. His lawyers issued a one-line statement. His Royal Highness Prince Andrew denies any involvement in custodial arrangements of the Duke of Sussex's children and will not dignify unsubstantiated claims with further response. But here's the thing. He didn't deny contact with Meghan. He didn't deny the meetings. He didn't deny Dynasty Reimagined. He just denied the custody part. Suspicious? The palace thinks so. The monarchy isn't just circling the wagons. It's launching a full institutional lockdown. Sources inside Clarence House now confirm that a second wave of legal filings is coming, and this time they're not just about the kids. They're about the crown's credibility, its bloodline, its very survival in the digital age. And Prince Harry, for all his pain, all his fury, all his guilt, he made one thing terrifyingly clear in the final lines of the leaked audio. You want to know what betrayal sounds like? It's when your wife and your uncle are building a new house and you're not even invited to the foundation. That's not royal heartbreak, that's royal war. The moment the audio hit internal palace servers, something shifted. Not publicly, not yet, but behind carved oak doors and beneath chandeliers that have watched empires rise and fall, the monarchy stopped reacting and started calculating. Because this was no longer about a broken marriage. It was about a possible shadow structure forming parallel to the crown. A structure Harry was now openly accusing Meghan and Andrew of attempting to build, one that would monetize proximity to royalty while undermining it from the outside. And if Harry's claims were even half true, the palace wasn't dealing with rebellion, it was dealing with infiltration. The second half of the leaked court audio, the part that insiders say was almost deleted before being preserved, is the most chilling. The transcript reveals Harry describing what he calls the blueprint, governance, transfer, symbolic capital. That isn't how people talk about bedtime stories and school lunches. That's how you talk about restructuring power. Sources close to the royal legal office say the phrase symbolic capital triggered immediate review by constitutional advisors. Because in monarchy terms, symbolic capital means lineage, influence, titles, narrative control, historic legitimacy. In other words, the crown's currency. And now Harry was claiming that Meghan and Andrew were attempting to create a monetized version of it outside the institution. The internal panic was quiet but decisive. Within hours, an emergency strategic review was launched under what insiders refer to as the Fortress Continuity Doctrine. It's rarely invoked. It exists for moments when the monarchy believes its long-term narrative integrity is at risk. And this qualified. What makes it worse is the timeline Harry reportedly outlined. He claimed the meetings between Meghan and Andrew intensified right after the children's tuition withdrawals surfaced, right after the Dubai brand negotiations accelerated, right after Project Emancipation appeared in internal memos. Coincidence or coordinated repositioning? Then came another detail from the audio that nobody saw coming. They called it a transition of relevance. Said the old guard is collapsing. said this was evolution. Evolution, a word loaded with implication. Because evolution in monarchy terms means one thing: replacing the center of gravity. If Meghan and Andrew were indeed discussing an alternative royal ecosystem, one based in global philanthro capital influence, then this wasn't just about custody, it was about creating a rival throne without a throne room. And Harry? According to the leak, he only discovered it after stumbling across a draft framework on a shared legal drive. The document was allegedly titled Sovereign Continuity Model Phase 1. Phase 1. That implies more phases. The palace didn't waste time. By midweek, financial oversight teams began quietly reviewing offshore connections allegedly linked to Andrew's historic trust networks. Nothing public, no announcements, just deep dives. And then something else surfaced. A draft investor briefing allegedly circulated to select Middle Eastern backers under the name New Global Royal Initiative. The pitch reportedly emphasized independent lineage authority free from Westminster constraints. Independent lineage authority free from Westminster. That phrase alone sent tremors through constitutional advisors. Because if a parallel structure of influence were built around royal descendants without crown oversight, it could fracture legitimacy in ways no scandal ever had. Publicly, nothing was confirmed. But internally, the temperature was volcanic. Meanwhile, Meghan's legal team pivoted. They attempted to challenge the admissibility of the leaked audio, arguing it was confidential strategy discussion taken out of context. They framed Harry's claims as emotional distortion fueled by paranoia. But here's the complication. Harry wasn't speaking abstractly. He referenced dates, meetings, documents. Specificity is dangerous. The more detailed the claim, the harder it is to dismiss as hysteria. And then came the moment that truly escalated everything. A private session in Santa Barbara reportedly ended with Harry's attorney requesting judicial protection for additional sealed evidence, described only as visual corroboration. Visual corroboration. Not emails, not transcripts, visual. Insiders immediately speculated. Photos, security footage, a recorded meeting, whatever it is, it hasn't surfaced yet. But the mere mention of it shifted leverage dramatically. Because if Harry possesses imagery proving coordination between Meghan and Andrew in discussions about custodial rebranding or legacy restructuring, the scandal multiplies tenfold. At Windsor, senior advisors began using a phrase that hadn't been heard in decades. Preemptive containment. Containment of what? Narrative contagion. If the public begins to perceive that alternative royal legitimacy can be manufactured through branding alliances and offshore capital, then the mystique of hereditary sovereignty weakens, and monarchy survives on mystique. Meanwhile, Andrew's silence grew louder. No interviews, no counter accusations, just legal denials and private movement. Observers noticed something curious. Andrew canceled 2 scheduled charity appearances and withdrew from a planned European engagement. Quietly, without explanation. Distance is strategic, but distance also implies caution, and caution implies risk. Harry, for his part, reportedly retreated further from public visibility. But insiders claim he's not retreating, he's consolidating. According to a source familiar with his legal posture, Harry is prepared to argue that the alleged takeover attempt constituted not just custodial manipulation, but institutional destabilization. That's heavy language. Institutional destabilization is not something courts treat lightly when minors connected to sovereign structures are involved. If framed successfully, it transforms this from family dispute into governance dispute. And governance disputes trigger constitutional reflexes. At one point in the leaked audio, Harry allegedly says, "I left the institution. I didn't leave the bloodline." That line is now circulating internally as both defiance and declaration. He may have stepped away from duties, but he's reminding everyone that lineage still ties him and his children to the core. takeover. Which brings us to the most explosive twist of all. Rumors are swirling that a confidential addendum to the guardianship filing references contingency authority under a little-discussed clause in sovereign custody doctrine, one that allows temporary removal of external influence deemed strategically exploitative. If interpreted broadly, that could apply not just to travel plans or media exposure, but to advisory relationships. Advisory relationships like Andrew's alleged involvement. If the court agrees that advisory interference contributed to destabilizing parental alignment, then Andrew's distance won't shield him. It will spotlight him. The palace, as always, remains publicly silent. But silence in monarchy is rarely passive. It's calibrated. And right now, every move feels calibrated. As for Meghan, sources say she feels blindsided, not by the custody battle, but by Andrew being pulled into the narrative. Her camp reportedly insists the meetings were legacy discussions, not conspiratorial maneuvers. Legacy discussions. But in a monarchy, legacy is power, and power discussions conducted outside institutional frameworks raise alarms. The larger question now hanging in the air is this. Was this truly a coordinated attempt to build a parallel royal enterprise, or is Harry interpreting ambition as betrayal? That question may define everything that follows. Because if evidence surfaces validating Harry's claims, it will go down as the boldest attempted reinvention of royal hierarchy in modern times. But if it doesn't, then Harry risks being seen as the architect of the very implosion he's trying to prevent. Either way, the monarchy is no longer merely responding to scandal. It's confronting a philosophical threat. Can royalty exist in the digital age without becoming a brand commodity? Harry's accusation forces that confrontation into daylight. And perhaps that's why the leak feels less like accident and more like inevitability. Somewhere inside those palace walls, someone pressed record. Someone preserved the file. Someone ensured it would surface. Because sometimes in institutions built on secrecy, exposure becomes the only defense. This is no longer a custody battle, it's a war over narrative sovereignty. And the crown does not surrender narrative easily. If there is more evidence, if the rumored visual corroboration surfaces, this saga will explode beyond legal chambers and into constitutional crisis territory. For now, the audio remains the detonator, a whispered accusation echoing through corridors built on tradition. And one sentence continues to reverberate louder than all the rest. They were building something without me. If that something was truly a takeover, then history will remember this as the moment the monarchy nearly fractured from within. And if it wasn't, then history will remember it as the moment suspicion became the most dangerous force in the royal bloodline. Either way, the walls are listening now, and nothing said behind them will ever feel private again.